Well, it's been a while since we've done one of these edible plant profile videos. We figured this was a good one because it's something people are familiar with, something that has a pretty wide range, and something that tastes really good. It's not just edible, it's actually good. And so today's is the black raspberry, or Rubus occidentalis, which I think I said that right. This is a different species than the red raspberries. There is some blackish domestic red raspberries, which is Rubus idaeus. We'll do a different video on them. They're far more familiar to people. But this species has quite a bit of a different growth habit from the red raspberries, so we'll take a look. So here's one of our patches of black raspberries, and as you can see, this is right outside the house, and these were here when we moved in. We have made some minor attempts to move them around. They're great to have. These are a great plant to have just kind of out of the way, and they will produce berries for you, and they really don't take a lot of tending. When I come in close here, you can see, of course, there is the reason for the common name, the black raspberry. When these are ripe, they turn to quite a deep purple color, which is a nice way to tell that they are ripe. When you look at these ones behind here, you can see they start out quite red and they're quite firm. And actually this one, like this berry here, the berry cluster here, would be almost ripe. You could pick it, but it wouldn't be quite as ripe as these two, which have really gone to that purple color. Now, one of the big differences between the red raspberry and the black raspberry is the canes. This species, as you can see here, grows these long, almost rose-like canes, and they are tipped. Let me bring this up with quite a bit of armament. They're spiky. The leaves are a little bit different too. These ones aren't quite divided, but sometimes they'll have like 5 leaflets, almost a little bit more like the blackberries, which is a totally different set of species. And they usually have this, you can see where I touched it here, they usually have this bloom on them, which actually does kind of rub off. It's usually like a purplish blue or turquoisey blue bloom. So similar to the red raspberry, the black raspberry does have the primocanes and the floricanes. And so this plant does basically the exact same thing. The berries are produced, or the fruit is produced on the second year, the older canes. At which point you really should cut the old canes out to sort of help the plant vigor. This species only fruits once a year, and for us that time is usually kind of very end of June through to, I'm going to say, mid-July, because the fruit isn't ready all at the same time, which is kind of nice, but you do have to keep checking. So it's nice to have them somewhere out of the way, but somewhere that's close enough you can actually go and check them periodically. Now, going back to the canes, when you look at the end of these canes, they look kind of unassuming, but if you notice when I let it go, they have this arching growth habit. And essentially what's really interesting about this species is, to propagate it, you actually propagate them best, clone them I should say, from the end of the canes. And I'll show you what I mean here. So this is a bit hard to see, but what's actually happened here, this is a new cane that's just starting to form. You can go down, you can kind of see it coming up there. Now the color's a bit tricky to see, but what this essentially is, this is an older cane right here. And what happens with these, they bend down, and where they touch the ground, they root. So to propagate new plants, you need the ends of your canes to bend down and touch the ground. Now you can control this, i.e. you can bend them down into pots and whatnot, which we may actually do with these patches just to make it a little easier, because we want to start another patch somewhere. Or you can let them do it themselves, because they have a natural tendency to do that. Or you can, in a more controlled setting like the edge of a garden or whatnot, where you can actually get at them from all sides, you can bend the canes down a row, keep your new growth coming. So there's lots of possibilities here on propagating these plants. So certainly by no means an exhaustive analysis of this plant, But for something that's reasonably familiar to most people, I find this is kind of a forgotten type of blackberry. There are some cultivars, but I don't believe they're as commonly traded or as popular as a lot of the red raspberries, partially because of the cane's pretty good armament. I'm not aware of a thornless variety, but I could be mistaken on that. And there have been some red raspberry cultivars that have been created which are more of the purpley color. Regardless, this is a native Eastern North American plant that's relatively abundant, and if you look in your area, you can probably find some that you could transplant if you don't have any of these on your property. They are, as you can see, again, a little bit massive and spreading, so they are something that I would recommend you plant somewhere that it doesn't matter if they spread and sort of take over a bit, because that's the only way you get the new canes, right, is by them bending over, touching the ground, and creating new ones. So something to keep in mind. But as far as a border or back of property or whatever, definitely a great plant. So we're back in, and there's our haul of black raspberries, which is not too bad. And we actually have, this was our first harvest, which we've had in the fridge for a couple days. Kind of every 2 days we go out and give it a really good check over. But what we're going to do now is also kind of a little tip here, and of how we preserve
homestead
these.
hack even.
Kind of. Basically what we do, these aren't washed or anything because they're pretty clean. We just are...
We're confident in our home-picked wild berries.
There's nothing on them.
Not washing them is nice because it keeps them drier, which allows this to work better.
Yeah, we're just trying to lay them out on the cookie sheet so that we can put them in the freezer, kind of flash freeze them, sort of, before
bagging them.
So that if we can essentially pick them out individual, like you would from a grocery store bag of frozen fruit.
Yeah.
I'm going to see, I think...
One cup at a time, basically. It's really nice because sometimes you don't know whether you're going to want to pull out of these for jelly or jam or a mixed berry thing, and sometimes you need 2 cups, sometimes you need 1 cup. So this works out perfect. We just bung them all into a large freezer bag, and it works amazing doing it this way. Apparently licorice is going to help.
You don't eat raspberries, Cat. But pretty much, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't want it really piled, but they're dry, so they should just freeze, and they won't freeze as a clump.
So there we are. We've just leveled an area. They're just going to sit in there. It actually works quite nice because I can fit 3 cookie sheets across the top of this freezer if we happen to pick that much fruit. As it is today, we picked 350 grams. Another little hefty foraging bit.
If you do have any of these on your property and you're in a similar area to us, I would definitely suggest get out and take a look at them, because they probably have some berries on them already, and they're a great sort of early summer treat.